She walked the same streets every day, unnoticed. Just another poor girl to the world. But one man, wealthy, powerful, saw something the rest were too blind to notice, and what he did changed everything. Every morning at exactly 6:03 a.m., Emily Jensen stepped out of her tiny apartment, tucked above an old convenience store, her uniform perfectly pressed despite being worn out. She walked past her neighbors, smiled, nodded, but no one ever returned the gesture. To them, she was just background, a shadow moving through a world too loud and too fast to notice her. Emily worked at a small-town diner, Ruby's Place, as a waitress. The kind of place where regulars came more for gossip than for pancakes. The owner, Ruby, barely acknowledged her, except to bark orders or scold her for things she didn't do. And the customers? Most didn't even look her in the eyes. Some even acted like handing her a tip was charity. She had dreams once, big ones, of writing books, traveling the world, starting a charity for kids like her who grew up in broken homes. But those dreams got shelved along with her college applications the day her mom got sick. Emily left everything behind to take care of her. By the time her mother passed, life had already slammed the door on opportunity. Each shift at the diner felt like a silent punishment. She moved with quiet efficiency, refilling coffee cups, cleaning up spills, dodging insults masked as jokes. "You should smile more," a trucker sneered once, slapping $1 on the counter like a reward. She smiled anyway, though it hurt her more than the long hours on her feet. After work, she'd take the long way home just to avoid the groups of teenagers who mocked her clothes, her silence, her very existence. They didn't know her name. To them, she was that girl with the sad eyes. Her phone barely rang except for the occasional reminder that her bills were past due. She had no one, no family, no friends, just a stack of secondhand books, a journal she wrote in every night, and a cat named Whiskey, who greeted her at the door with more affection than any human did. And yet, she never missed a shift, never arrived late, never complained. There was something unbreakable in her silence, a quiet kind of strength, but no one noticed. No one cared. Until one rainy Thursday morning, as she stood outside the diner wiping raindrops off the menu board, she felt a pair of eyes watching her. Not with pity, not with mockery, but with curiosity, and something deeper. She glanced up and saw a black car parked across the street. Inside, a man in a sharp suit leaned slightly forward, his gaze locked on her. He didn't smile, he didn't wave, but in that moment, Emily felt seen. For the first time in years, she wasn't invisible. The whispers always started when she entered a room. Subtle at first, just a turn of the head, a glance too long, a smile shared between two people who weren't smiling with her. In the diner, the regulars became experts in muttered insults hidden beneath laughter. "She must have done something to end up like that," one woman whispered behind a laminated menu. Another chuckled. "She probably lives off tips and pity." Emily heard everything, though she never reacted. She learned long ago that reacting gave them power. Instead, she tightened her ponytail, straightened her back, and kept pouring coffee. Even Ruby, the owner, wasn't subtle. "Wear some makeup next time, Emily. You look sickly," she said one morning, tossing a stained apron at her. That same day, she gave the new waitress, Madison, a bubbly 22-year-old with perfect hair, a 10-minute pep talk about presentation and potential. Emily said nothing, just nodded. But inside, she felt the familiar sting of invisibility mixed with humiliation. Every slight, every ignored greeting chipped away at her, piece by piece. At the grocery store, clerks skipped over her in line. At the bus stop, people avoided sitting beside her. Once, a mother pulled her child closer when Emily sat nearby, as if poverty were contagious. It wasn't that people were overtly cruel. It was the passive way they dismissed her, the way they made her feel like she didn't matter. She often wondered if she'd done something wrong, if maybe she was as forgettable, as unworthy, as the world seemed to think. Her only escape was her notebook, where she wrote stories about strong women overcoming impossible odds. In her imagination, she wasn't invisible. She was the hero. But no story she wrote ever started like hers. That rainy day lingered in her memory. The man in the black car, those eyes. For the first time, someone hadn't looked through her. They had looked at her. And though nothing had changed, though she was still ignored by everyone around her, that memory stayed with her like a spark under wet ashes. At the diner, she scanned the street every morning now, hoping to see that car again. Hoping it hadn't been a trick of the light or a cruel daydream. But days passed, weeks. The whispers didn't stop. The looks didn't soften. If anything, they grew worse when a new rumor started floating, that Emily had been seen talking to a man in a luxury car. "She's probably trying to trap a rich guy," one of the waitresses scoffed. Another added, "Some girls will do anything for money." Emily kept her head down. She didn't defend herself. What was the point? But something had shifted. Deep inside her, that small moment of being seen began to grow roots. And though she didn't know it yet, those roots were about to crack the very foundation of her world. It was supposed to be just another morning shift. Emily arrived 15 minutes early, as usual, her apron folded neatly under her arm. The sky was gray, threatening rain again, and the diner already buzzed with the low murmur of early customers. She slipped quietly into the back, tied her apron, and started wiping down tables. No one greeted her. Not even Madison, who had taken to ignoring Emily completely after catching her looking out the window too often, presumably hoping to see the mysterious man again. By 7:30 a.m., the place was full. The kind of crowd that brought more stress than tips. Orders barked, dishes clattered, and coffee cups emptied faster than she could fill them. That's when it happened. As she rushed to table 4, balancing 3 plates and a fresh pot of coffee, Madison stepped backward without looking. Their shoulders collided. Emily stumbled, and the full pot of scalding coffee flew from her hand, splashing across the table, soaking a customer's lap. A sharp cry rang out. The man, middle-aged, important-looking, with a gold watch and a deep frown, stood up clutching his trousers. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked. The entire diner went silent. Ruby stormed from the back. "Emily, are you trying to ruin my business?" she shouted, already grabbing napkins and apologizing profusely to the man. "She's new. She's slow." "I'm so sorry, sir. Breakfast is on the house." Emily stood frozen, coffee still dripping from her fingers. Her cheeks burned. She opened her mouth to explain, but stopped. She knew how this worked. Words wouldn't help, not here. Laughter erupted from another table. "Guess someone wanted their coffee extra hot today," a teenager snickered. Emily blinked fast to fight the tears. She wanted to disappear. Ruby turned to her. "Go home. You've done enough damage for one day." Emily untied her apron slowly, her hands trembling. She left it on the counter and walked out without a word. Outside, the cold air hit her like a slap. Rain had started to fall. She didn't have an umbrella. She walked all the way home soaked, her shoes squishing with every step. When she finally got inside her apartment, she dropped her wet clothes on the floor and sat by the window, knees pulled to her chest. Her cat, Whiskey, meowed softly and rubbed against her. She buried her face in his fur and cried for the first time in weeks. Not just from humiliation, but from exhaustion, from carrying the weight of being unseen, unheard, and unwanted. That night, she didn't write in her notebook. She stared at the blank page, hands limp. Her stories felt like lies now, fairy tales for someone else's life. And yet, she kept thinking about those eyes, the man in the black car, the way he had looked at her, like she mattered. She wondered who he was, and why, out of everyone in this cold, unforgiving town, he had noticed her. 2 days passed. Emily didn't return to the diner. She told herself it was just a break, that she'd go back once the shame stopped burning her skin. But deep down, she knew she couldn't walk into that place again. Not after being humiliated in front of a room full of people who already thought she didn't belong. On the 3rd morning, she forced herself out of bed, wrapped herself in an old coat, and walked into town to drop off her resume at a bookstore. It was a long shot. They weren't hiring, but she had to try something, anything. As she crossed Main Street, she saw it again. The black car, parked by the sidewalk, sleek, polished, out of place among the dusty trucks and dented sedans that lined the town. Her heart skipped. She slowed her steps. The driver's seat was empty. She scanned the street, and that's when she saw him. He stood by the glass window of a vacant building at the corner of the block. It had been a run-down hardware store for years, now closed. He wore a charcoal gray coat, tailored and elegant, and held a folder under his arm. He was speaking with someone, maybe a realtor, and gesturing toward the building's interior. Emily's eyes stayed on him longer than she meant to. He turned. Their eyes met, and again he didn't look away. Instead, he nodded. A small, intentional gesture. Not quite a smile, but something close, something respectful. She felt her breath catch. She kept walking, feeling his gaze on her back the whole way. That afternoon, as she passed the same corner again, she noticed a sign going up. Future site of Carter and Sloan Development. Office opening soon. Carter. That was the name everyone whispered when they talked about the mystery man who'd bought up 3 old buildings in town. No one knew much, only that he was rich, private, and not from around here. Emily paused, staring at the sign, when a deep voice behind her said, "It's not much yet, is it?" She turned, startled. There he was, close now. Tall, with graying hair at his temples, a strong jaw and kind but observant eyes. He looked more like a professor than a businessman. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," she stammered. "No apology needed," he said gently. "You work at Ruby's Diner, right?" "I did," she answered, lowering her eyes. "I thought so. I noticed how you handled those customers. Calm under pressure, polite, even when they didn't deserve it." His voice was warm, measured. She blinked. "You noticed that?" He nodded. "Most people think wealth is about what you have. I think it's about what you see." He paused. "I see things, that's my job." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not like she was a problem, not like she was invisible. "I'm Jackson Carter," he said, extending his hand. "Emily," she replied, hesitating before shaking it. There was a pause, long and quiet. The wind picked up. His eyes searched hers, not intrusively but curiously, as if he were trying to read pages she hadn't written yet. "I'd like to buy you a coffee," he said, "if you're not too busy." Emily hesitated again. She'd been taught not to trust offers that came too easily. But something in his tone wasn't flirtation. It wasn't pity. It was genuine interest. And maybe, just maybe, a little respect. She nodded. "Okay." And just like that, the first domino fell. They walked 2 blocks to a quiet cafe Emily had passed countless times but never entered. Too upscale, too glassy, too not for her. But Jackson Carter opened the door for her without a second thought. And for the first time in her life, she stepped into a place that smelled like roasted hazelnuts and quiet jazz instead of grease and burnt toast. No one looked at her funny. No one whispered. Maybe because she walked in beside him. He didn't rush. He asked her how she liked her coffee and actually waited for her answer. Then he ordered it just that way. 2 sugars, no cream, and remembered it. Small detail, but it made her heart ache in a way she hadn't expected. They sat by the window, where rain tapped gently against the glass. She expected him to start talking about himself, like most people did. But he didn't. He asked about her, what books she liked, what her childhood was like, if she had dreams, and if she still believed in them. She answered hesitantly at first, unsure of his intentions. But the more he listened, the way his eyes never left hers, the way he leaned in when she spoke, the more her voice began to steady. And then she laughed. A soft, surprised sound that felt like a stranger in her own mouth. She hadn't laughed like that in years. She almost apologized for it, but Jackson just smiled and said, "There it is." "There what?" she asked. "Your light." She blinked. People had always seen her as a burden. Jackson Carter saw light. The conversation flowed easily, but when she finally looked at the time, nearly 2 hours had passed. She stood quickly, flustered. "I should go. I didn't mean to keep you." "You didn't," he said calmly. "In fact, I was hoping to ask you something." She tensed. Here it comes, she thought, the catch. But he pulled a business card from his coat pocket and slid it across the table. "I'm opening an office here. I need someone who knows this town, who knows how to work under pressure, someone with heart. I could teach you everything else." She stared at the card. Jackson Carter, founding partner, Carter and Sloan Development. "I'm not qualified," she said softly. He tilted his head. "Maybe not on paper, but I've met CEOs who couldn't handle a rude customer half as gracefully as you did. Come by tomorrow. Just talk to me." She took the card with shaking fingers. As they walked back out into the drizzle, a familiar voice rang from across the street. "Well, look at that," Ruby scoffed, arms crossed, standing by the diner door. Madison stood beside her, lips curled in a smirk. "Guess we know what kind of girls he likes," Madison added, loud enough for Emily to hear. Emily froze. The old Emily would have ducked her head and rushed off, but she didn't move. Jackson turned toward them slowly, calm, civil, but his gaze was sharp. "I like people who treat others with dignity," he said, loud and clear. "Something clearly in short supply around here." He turned back to Emily. "Don't let people who live small try to shrink you." For once, she believed it. They walked on. The next morning, Emily stood outside the soon-to-be office building with Jackson's card clutched tightly in her hand. She almost didn't come. 1,000 voices in her head told her to turn around, that it was a joke, a setup, a mistake. But one voice, his voice, echoed louder than the rest. "Don't let people who live small try to shrink you." She stepped inside. The space was dusty and echoing, but sunlight poured through tall windows, catching specks of floating dust in golden beams. Jackson stood near a desk made of sawhorses and plywood, talking to a contractor. When he saw her, his face lit up, not with surprise, but like he'd been expecting her all along. "Glad you came," he said. They sat on folding chairs with blueprints between them. But instead of talking about tasks or salaries, Jackson started with something else. "Tell me about your life," he said simply. Emily hesitated, then began with the easy parts. Grew up here, raised by a single mother. Dropped out of college before even starting because her mom got sick. She worked 3 jobs at one point. Lost her mother 2 winters ago. Since then, it was just her and whiskey. As she spoke, something loosened. The words came faster, spilling out like water after a dam breaks. The nights spent crying behind the diner, the birthday she spent alone eating instant noodles, the day she pawned her guitar to buy medicine. She didn't realize she was crying until she saw the way Jackson's eyes softened, not out of pity, but something deeper. "My mother was a waitress too," he said quietly. "She worked double shifts so I could go to school. She passed before she could see what I built." Emily blinked. "She never let the world tell her what she was worth," he continued, "and neither should you." That day, he didn't offer her a job. He trained her, handed her tasks, explained things, challenged her. He didn't treat her like someone to be saved. He treated her like someone capable. Every day after that, Emily came back. She swept floors, took notes, made coffee. Jackson taught her about zoning permits, contracts, schedules. He let her shadow meetings, and more than once she saw the surprise on the faces of clients when they realized she was his assistant. People in town started to talk. Some whispered admiration, others sneered. "Sleeping her way into success," someone muttered at the post office. Emily kept walking. She wasn't naive. She knew people would talk, but something inside her was changing. She started looking in the mirror with a little less shame, wrote in her journal again, even bought back her old guitar. One afternoon, Jackson found her plucking at the strings during a break. He sat beside her, listening silently. "You ever think about leaving this town?" he asked. She looked at him. Every day. He smiled. Maybe not just yet. And in that moment, under dusty light and fading paint, the unlikeliest friendship, maybe something more, took root between the invisible girl and the man who saw her. It started with a whisper in the grocery aisle. Then, a dirty look at the laundromat. A cold shoulder from a neighbor who used to at least nod. The town had never embraced Emily, but now it was as if her existence offended them. Someone had snapped a photo, Emily and Jackson walking side by side, smiling, and posted it on the town's Facebook group with the caption, "Some people know how to move up in the world, if you know what I mean." It went viral, at least locally. The comment section boiled with innuendo. Typical. She's got nothing but still manages to catch the richest guy in town? I guess integrity isn't needed when you've got a sad story. Emily didn't have to read it all. She felt it in the way people looked at her now, not with dismissal but with judgment, with cruelty. Madison from the diner posted a vague status. Some girls would sell their soul for a shot at luxury. Glad I have self-respect. Emily wanted to scream, not because they misunderstood her, but because it never mattered what the truth was. To them, she would always be the poor girl who didn't know her place. She considered quitting, leaving town altogether. But Jackson stopped her. "They're not mad at you," he said. "They're mad they ignored something beautiful until someone else saw it first." Still, the pressure mounted. Ruby, who had once ignored her, now openly insulted her when they crossed paths. "Playing office girl now, huh? Let's see how long he keeps you around." And then came the blow that shattered what little trust Emily had left in people. One morning, Jackson walked into the makeshift office, jaw tense. He held a manila envelope in his hand. "Anonymous tip," he said grimly. Inside were photos, doctored, of Emily entering his car late at night, accompanied by a printed note. "Is this the kind of leadership your company endorses?" It had been sent to his partner, Sloan. "I know it's fake," he assured her, "but it's going to make things harder." Emily's chest tightened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jackson looked at her, pain in his eyes. "Don't be. I'm the one who's sorry, that this town can't stand to see someone rise." For the first time, she saw weariness in him, not disappointment in her, but frustration with the ugliness of small minds. Still, the damage was done. Calls were missed, meetings postponed, rumors spiraled, and the same people who once ignored her now took delight in her fall, even if it was built on lies. Whiskey stopped eating. Emily rushed him to the vet, using the last of her savings for blood tests. That same night, her landlord slipped a late notice under her door. She sat on the floor, arms wrapped around her cat, and cried like a child, not just from sadness, but from exhaustion. How much more could she take? And yet, the next morning she woke up and showed up. Because deep inside her there was still a voice, quiet, steady, saying she was meant for more than what the world believed. And someone had finally believed it too. The morning after the betrayal, Emily expected silence from Jackson, distance, maybe even regret. But when she arrived at the office, there was something waiting for her on the desk. A new notebook, leather-bound, elegant, with her initials engraved in gold. Inside, a note in his handwriting, "For the stories you haven't written yet." She clutched the notebook to her chest and sat down slowly, tears welling in her eyes. He hadn't turned away. He hadn't doubted her. He trusted her. From that day on, something shifted inside Emily. She didn't try to explain herself anymore, didn't try to win anyone over. She focused on learning, absorbing every detail, every process, every responsibility Jackson gave her. She started managing the calendar, then the budgets, then small meetings, and she was good at it. She still walked to work, still wore secondhand clothes, but she walked with her head higher. And people noticed, not just Jackson, contractors, clients. Even the barista down the street started greeting her by name. One evening, Jackson invited her to an event at the town hall, a business forum. Emily hesitated. "They'll talk," she said. "Let them," he replied. "You earned your place." She wore a simple navy dress, borrowed heels, hair tied back. But when she stepped into the room, the murmurs were instant. Madison was there too, clinging to the arm of a local real estate broker, smirking. Emily ignored them. She stood beside Jackson as he introduced her to the mayor as the backbone of this project. And when she was asked a question about zoning reforms, she answered with clarity and confidence. The mayor nodded in approval. After the event, someone tapped her shoulder. It was the bookstore manager. Remember the place that hadn't been hiring? "I saw you speak," she said. "We're expanding soon. If you're ever looking for something on the side." Emily smiled. "Thank you. Truly." On the way out, she passed a group of women whispering about her. But for the first time, their words didn't matter. Jackson looked at her as they walked to the car. "You've grown." She looked at him. "No, I just stopped shrinking." That night, she sat on her bed with whiskey curled beside her, writing in the new notebook. Not stories of fantasy this time, but her story. The one unfolding, quietly, beautifully, despite all odds. Outside, the town still talked, still judged, but seeds had been planted. And Emily? She was learning how to bloom in the dirt. Months passed. The old office was no longer just bare walls and dust. It had become a thriving hub, organized, warm, filled with purpose. Emily now had her own desk, a nameplate, and responsibilities that once felt unreachable. But more than that, she had respect, not just from Jackson, from clients, from contractors, from people who once turned their faces away when she walked past. She wasn't loud about her rise. There were no dramatic declarations or online posts. No "I told you so" moments, just consistent action, quiet strength, the kind of transformation that couldn't be denied, even by those who resented it. One afternoon, while reviewing schedules for a community housing project the company was backing, Jackson paused beside her desk. "You know what today is?" he asked. She looked up, confused. "Tuesday?" He smiled. "6 months since you first walked into this building." She blinked. It felt like yesterday. It felt like a lifetime ago. "I was thinking," he continued, "you've grown into more than an assistant. I'd like to make your role official. Project coordinator." Her heart stopped. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Are you?" he said with a smirk. She stood slowly and for the first time looked around the office as someone who belonged, not tolerated, not pitied, needed. Later that week, she passed Ruby in the supermarket. The woman looked her up and down, then muttered, "He'll leave you like the rest." Emily smiled gently. "I didn't need him to stay. I needed him to believe, and he did." She walked away, not in triumph, but in peace. One evening, she returned to the diner, not as an employee, but as a customer. She sat at the same table where she once spilled coffee on a man's lap. The waitress looked nervous. Emily smiled kindly. "It's okay. I've been there." She left a generous tip, more than she'd ever received, and on the napkin she wrote, "Sometimes the girl you laugh at is the woman you'll wish you had hired." But it wasn't about revenge. Emily didn't need anyone's validation anymore. She had found something far more precious, herself. Jackson noticed it too. Their moments became softer, more personal, shared glances, quiet dinners, walks at sunset. They never labeled it. They didn't need to. What they were building was deeper than romance. It was trust, respect, a kind of love that didn't rescue. It recognized. One night, sitting beside her, Jackson said, "You're not the same girl I met outside the diner." "No," she replied, eyes gleaming, "but I'm exactly who I was meant to become." It was a crisp fall morning when the town received the invitation. A formal announcement. Carter and Sloan would be hosting a ribbon-cutting ceremony for their new community project, affordable housing for single mothers and displaced families, the first of its type in the region. Emily was listed as project lead. Whispers began again, but this time, they were different. "She's leading it. She was just a waitress, or is this for real?" The day of the ceremony, a crowd gathered. Local press, officials, townspeople. many of whom had never said a kind word to Emily. Madison stood near the back, arms crossed, scanning for flaws. Ruby was there too, glaring with the same bitterness as ever. Then Jackson stepped up to the microphone. He greeted the crowd, spoke about the company's vision, the importance of giving back. But when he spoke about the heart of the project, he turned toward Emily. "This community didn't always treat her with kindness," he said. "But where others saw nothing, I saw resilience. I saw fire. I saw someone who reminded me of the person who made me who I am." He paused. "My mother." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jackson cleared his throat. "Emily doesn't know this part. Not yet. But when I was 9 years old, I passed through this town with my mother. We had nowhere to go. She worked at Ruby's diner for 2 weeks before she was fired, because she was too tired to smile." All eyes turned to Ruby. "She cried in the alley behind that place," Jackson continued. "And a girl, maybe 13, brought her a sandwich and a blanket, told her not to give up. My mother never forgot it." He looked straight at Emily. "That girl was your mother." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. "She didn't just give my mother comfort. She gave her the strength to keep going, to raise me, and now, her daughter gave me a reason to remember who I am." The crowd was silent. Then someone clapped, another followed, and then the entire square broke into applause, genuine, thunderous applause. Ruby turned and left. Madison lowered her head, but Emily, she stood tall, not in pride, in purpose. That day she walked through the crowd not as the poor girl, not as a curiosity, but as a leader. A symbol of how quiet strength can echo through generations, how kindness leaves footprints deeper than cruelty ever could. And as she looked at Jackson beside her, she realized something. He hadn't saved her. He had simply seen her, and that had made all the difference. How many Emilys walk among us every day, unseen, unheard, underestimated? How many times have we ignored someone's quiet pain, only to praise their strength after they've bloomed without our support? This story isn't just about a girl who rose from invisibility. It's about the power of being seen, of kindness passed down like a torch, lighting up lives long after it's given. It's about the truth that your value isn't measured by what others say, but by what you carry inside, even when no one is looking. Have you ever felt like Emily? Invisible, judged, pushed aside? Tell us in the comments. Your voice matters here. Would you have reacted like Jackson? Or have you ever missed a chance to see someone for who they truly were? Your story might inspire someone else to believe again. So share it. Let's keep these conversations alive. And if this story touched your heart, and you believe in supporting stories like this reaching more people, consider sending us a super thanks. Your financial help helps this channel grow and reach more lives that need a message of hope and justice. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that speaks to your soul. And now click the video on your screen to watch another story just like this, where love, dignity, and poetic justice always find their way. We'll see you there.